The new channel. The new channel. The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following show are those of the hosts, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Magandang tanghali. This is the new channel. Welcome to the new channel. Here to give you see the new you. This is Jesse Francis Rebustillo, your host to this wonderful program, the HR Hotline. Welcome back to the HR Hotline. We have a wonderful topic for this lunch. It actually is very, very near to my heart. Our topic for today is actually mass media. And you know very well, I came from the Philippine Daily Inquirer. And I was actually very, very much engaged with mass media. More so that I also do webinars on communication, and that's actually one module. The reason why I had this, because question for all of us, where do we get, or where is the source of our news and information? How sure we are that it is genuine and it's not fake. And also, us HR people, Dave Ulrich, our HR guru, included in our competencies. And one of the competencies is media integrator. How are we going to do it? Because we are the conduit. And people look at us. They depends sa atin. So how do we convey messages? We may be sending wrong signals. The news that we get from outside, we are supposed to bring it to our organizations. Woe to you if you're an HR who doesn't inform your organizations well. And your first client is your boss. You might be inclined or biased on some issues, but you have to be balanced. You have to inform. And again, including learning and talent and development practitioners, and HR. We have to be truthful. I remember in my previous HR posts, I was in organizations which have unions. Careful, do not rosy paint Do not rosy paint figures. Do not rosy paint information, or else they will gun on you. And that will be a cause for you being booted out of the organization. So HR, after this, you know what is wonderful with live streaming? Because after this you can share. Please share this. Because my first insight and message is, after getting the news and then conveying it to the organization, and also even the data of your organization, you have to be truthful. I will ask our special guest later on that statement, truth in advertising. You have to be truthful in how you present. You must not tell a lie, especially if these are your human resources. Do not rosy paint. I remember, again, as I mentioned, union representatives will ask exact data. I learned that you should not actually, what do you call that? In mathematics or in arithmetic, when it is 457, it has to be 457. You don't have to round it up to 460 because that three figures means a lot. So there should be a truth in our communication. There should be truth when it is mass media. Actually, in our own realm, when we have town hall meetings, when we have the bulletin board, when we have what do you call this, the memoranda, that is mass media because you are informing groups of people. Now, this is the last before I introduce our guest. Because we are influencers, we have to be careful. What you are doing now, later on, you will realize that you were wrong and you were mistaken. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have here a friend whom I invited to be our special guest. Actually, hindi ko siya kalibel. He owns, actually, legacy owner of a publication organization. But we're going to ask him about that. You know why I became close to him? It's because I was with Inquirer, so sometimes we see each other in events. But you know, a couple of years before I became president of the People Management Association of the Philippines in 2016, he was the chairman of the publication and marketing and PR of PINAP. And he was the head. So at the time, I was not yet the president. So I was a member. I remember Barbie was a member, Badette was a member, and he was our chair. Oh, it's a committee, but you know, in PMAP, the the PR and publication committee has a strong role, and I've seen him work, and we became friends. I can still remember why. That's why I like him. Whenever we had meetings, he treated us. O yun, kaya hindi kami magkalibet. Then also, I know that he is multi-awarded. Not only the newspaper that is multi-awarded, even our guest is multi-awarded. And he's a whole person. He's a teacher. He's a golfer and a badminton player. Much more, even though he is the CEO, he still edits and look into the nitty-gritty of the newspaper. He has a very long profile or resume. But there's only one thing that I would like to mention. He was a reporter in the States. So parang si Clark Kent, I can just remember the beat and the experience that he had. So ladies and gentlemen, so that we can have more time, let us welcome our dear friend and my idol, Dante Klink ang the second.
Hi, Jesse.
Hello! Hello, hello, hello. May tanong muna ako sa iyo. I know that you are in Las Piñas and I'm in Parañaque. So how is it that you're working from home?
Well, just like many companies these days, we've had to adopt our operations to the pandemic, and we did this early on at the imposition of the lockdown in March, and we didn't realize it would go on this long. But in the middle of that period, I think we made a decision to continue this indefinitely. And thankfully, with technology, we're able to do so. And lately, we found out, for instance, a couple of our people had tested positive for COVID-19 because of their coverage. And so I think this only serves as proof that what we did to allow people to work indefinitely from home is the right move. So
And
I'm working from home today.
Clint, I do webinars on working from home, and I think this will be now the better normal. Even
Yeah.
if we have the vaccine, even if we go back, we are now transitioning into that what you call the economy, the fourth industrial revolution, wherein there are really some jobs, and I think publication is one of them wherein we really have to now work from home. But of course, you still have to go to your beats. Okay, there is one question, personal question that I would like to ask you. Why Clink?
uh, well, as you know, I went to my family fled to the U.S. during the Marcos years, and so
Yeah.
I spent my high school and college years and a couple of years working as a reporter in the U.S. But all that time I was abroad, I knew I was going to come back, and so when I finally did, I had, of course, I was of course expected to work for my father. Incidentally, I was intending to work for Manila Standard because the
I
publisher
see.
there was the ninong of my sister. But
Yeah.
my mom would not have any of it, so I of course ended up working for the family business, and my boss was my dad, and he happens to be also Dante. So it became confusing in the office to have two Dante Angs, and it didn't seem very respectful for my dad to say older or younger. I was younger then. My hair was still black, But Klink was my childhood nickname. So I reserved it for close family and friends. But when I was at the office, it just became practical to use the nickname, even though my dad thought that it didn't really suit a grown up person. But it was more for practical reasons to revive that nickname.
But it is very catchy and it becomes you. It really becomes you. I know you, your personality. The Clink becomes you.
It's like falling utensils or something by hitting the floor.
I can still remember when I met you before COVID. I went there and we had a very, very lengthy
Yes.
conversation in one afternoon. And I was
Yes.
actually giving you all the chismes. Anyway, anyway, Clint, let me ask you. I have some questions here, and I hope
Go ahead.
you can help us. So, because our viewership is actually that big. But let me ask muna the viewers. We have a number of viewers here. Somebody, Donald is actually in Saudi. Then we have Jennifer Nuya, a member of the People Association, the Philippine Association of Professional Speakers. Clink, we miss you at POPs. When we have Cherry Ann here, Acacio. Then I'm very sure Lara Diana and Obet and uh, my dear friend Fremery Kabantak. Let me ask the viewers, where do you get your source of information now? So that at least Klink and I must be able to see the pulse. Saan kayo kumukuha ng inyong source of information ngayon? Okay. So, that is also my question with Klink. Where do people get their source of information now, especially that we are in the pandemic?
Well, there's I think more sources of news now than ever before. Certainly more than when I had become a professional in this field. Back then you had traditional media, you had newspapers, television, radio, and later on with the popularization of the internet, we saw websites, and lately, of course, social media. So there is no shortage of sources of news. Uh, the traditional players are still there. In fact, one of the phenomena that we're seeing now is traditional media crowding out bloggers and influencers on social media platforms. You take, for example, the former president of BuzzFeed. When BuzzFeed was at its height, it tried to recruit the president of the New York Times, but now BuzzFeed's president, former president, has now become a columnist of the New York Times. So there are a lot of sources of news. Traditional media, of course, is available not just through the conventional places, but also through new media like the internet and social media.
So, isay natin, what do you consider now as the not even in priority, pero yung ang tawag nun, mainstream media now. Say
Well,
we think
yeah,
yes, yes.
mainstream will always be the traditional media. So
Yes.
because of technology today, mainstream is not just available through mainstream. Mainstream is also available in the news streams. Like I said,
Yes.
Inquirer, your former paper, has a very good website, has a digital edition, but so do many other newspapers, including the Manila Times, New York Times, and what we're seeing now actually is a blurring of lines between media categories. For instance, in the past, if you were a TV program or TV network, your product was mainly in video content, but we're seeing now, for instance, GMA has a website with text. The Inquirer, which is primarily a paper, also has now video content. And this is the trend now. So it's less clear which is a newspaper and which is TV or which is radio. Many newspapers today now, including the Inquirer, has podcasts. So
Yeah.
but it's still branded as Sequoia. So mainstream is there. In fact, as I said earlier, with that example from BuzzFeed and the New York Times, I mean, the traditional media is such a big player online that it's even crowding out the other sources of news. But there is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
variety of sources out there for
Yeah.
people to follow.
Agree, Clint, kasi might be because with the traditional or mainstream media, you still have the structure wherein you get the sources actually from the reporters, and then you have editors to look into the accuracy and veracity of the news, and then later on, these are the ones being used by the vloggers, by the which are actually opinionated. Am I right?
Well, the thing is the media business has been around for centuries, and this is a
Yeah,
business
yeah,
that's been perfected, way before you and me. Uh, and so, because it is a business, you know that the likes of Inquirer, Manila Times, the Star, we spend a lot of money, we invest money to cover the news, and this is something really that is not replicated by an individual blogger
yes,
or
yes,
influencer.
yes.
The budget of Inquirer, and probably you follow the spending of the other newspapers.
An
ABS-CBN and
example,
GMA spend billions to cover the news. Yeah.
an example of which, the one that happened in Lebanon.
Hmm.
If you just watch the videos from individuals, you may have a bias and a slant. But if you really get it from the mainstream news, then you will understand.
Well, mainstream is not, free of bias as well. I mean, you
Oh,
see
I
this
like
in
that.
the, you see this in, I think most pointedly with U.S. media. You can tell, for instance, the way CNN, NBC, ABC covers
Yes,
President Trump, and you
yes,
see a marked difference in the way that, for instance,
yes,
Fox News covers President
yes.
Trump. It's quite different. So bias really is unnatural, I think, to people. But as professionals, we're trained to uh, deliver fair and fair news. That is meaning, besides the ones that show our bias, also that are contrary to our opinion.
Okay. I would like to ask that after our first break, but we still have 5 minutes. I would like to ask you because we mentioned that you studied in the States and you work in the States. What were your experiences? What your insights? What were your learnings when you were a reporter in the US?
Well, I was very green, of course, as can be expected, coming out of college. But I was fortunate that I had good mentors. I worked for the Tulsa Tribune, which is an evening paper in Oklahoma. It was the junior partner of a JOA, or a joint operating agreement, in Tulsa. The morning paper was the Tulsa World, where I had a lot of friends as well. But I think the main takeaway from that experience was um, just the independence. The Of course,
Right.
you're, as a professional, you don't you don't get to uh, you don't get to rely on others as much. You are expected to deliver, and the stakes of the game are much higher as a professional. And I think the biggest thing I had to overcome was the daily deadlines. Of course, when I was a student journalist in university, but our paper didn't come out daily. So having to produce stories every day, I learned how to do research quite fast and write even
Oh,
faster.
and I'm very sure that you shared us. You shared that, and now that you are at the helm, you make sure that Manila Times is doing that.
Well, I was happy to note the first time I think I visited the Philippines after that long stay in the U.S. I, of course, ran into a few journalists because my family's business is doing business in this industry, and I was quite impressed at the level of skill of the reporters here. I immediately noticed that if I were to be a reporter in the Philippines, I had to improve my skills even more, despite the fact that I had already worked for a couple of years in the US, but as a junior reporter only.
Yeah. I
Magaling
now
ang
I can
Pinoy, magaling
recall
ang Pinoy.
right now I can recall LGM Ma'am Letty, the standards that she set in Inquirer. LGM, can you still remember her?
Oh
Ma'am
yes,
Letty Magsanok, yes.
yes. I I,
Kara
I knew I
Kara is
knew
our
of her.
friend. Our cover. Now, before the break, I would like to ask you. So, the problem now is how can we distinguish fake from genuine news?
Well, I think what has to do really, what has to change really is the population itself. And this is I think a sign that we need more critical thinking in society.
I like that.
Uh, uh, you know, we you can't, as your mother used to tell you when you were young, don't believe everything you read. And when television became popular, don't believe everything that you see on TV. So really what matters is to think. And I think more that's more important now, moving forward from this period. Go, there, because of a lot of innovations, a lot of standards are changing, a lot of ways are changing, and people will have to, continually improve themselves, reinvent themselves. And so the ability to think is really a skill that needs to be developed if we are to be successful now and going into the future.
I see. But a lot are gullible, and then it's so easy for them to believe on some information that are not actually true, and that is really sad. And I don't know how we us in HR in communication, how are we going to educate our our people that they should have. I like that they should have critical thinking, must be able to determine, distinguish what is really fake and what is really true. Okay, we still have around 2 minutes to go. And you know that sometimes I am sad. There are a lot of information that we receive now, and there are some quarters telling us that we should actually try to shy away and refuse from too much information. What is your thoughts on this?
No, I don't agree with that. I think what we're seeing now, really, with social media in particular, are the execution of algorithms that reinforce personal biases. For instance, when you search something online, say you're going on vacation to some country, you will see recommendations from other websites for hotels and whatnot in that country. So the things that the sites that we visit online right now tend to reinforce what we're interested in, and so it's really an effort now for an individual to look for opinion or insights or information that is contrary to their own. Now, the algorithms that exist primarily in social media are meant to assist you in navigating the World Wide Web. And you have to have some guidance because there's just so much information. But I think the unintended consequence is that people become more isolated in today's world. So I mean, for instance, if you log on to say Netflix and you watch a particular show, you get recommendations from Netflix to watch similar things, and that's what I mean with the algorithm. And but the thing is, in the past, you are exposed to opposing views, and it's not as easy to get now on social media because of that architecture. So you have to exert effort, I think,
Yes.
to get opposing views, and this is something that we try to do with Manila Times. There are of course some critics of every paper, but what we try to do is we try to have both pro, anti, and middle
Right.
ground opinion in our paper.
Right. We'll go to that later on. Let's have our first series of announcements. Can we have the break? Please stay, Klink. Wonderful conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, last episode we had a series of announcements, videos, because I was told by Lloyd, the executive producer, we were actually launching a number of programs. I hope you watched it. But this time we had shorter, so we had more time. So can we call back again, my dear friend Klink? But before that, I still have to read this. Okay, so the big picture, you have to tune into TNC because the big picture is actually from Mondays to Fridays at 7 p.m. And then you have to be my lunch date on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Talk business with Dr. Mike and Bert on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Then we have the fourth project with Bob, and then Usapang Beauty on Thursdays and Saturdays at 5:30. You Turn, a wonderful show at Mondays and Thursdays at 11 in the morning, and we have the Buyer at 4 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, and a funny uh, light shows on the Puppet Stories by Wan Lu at 5 p.m. on Tuesdays and Fridays, the TNC Marketplace at it's actually near midnight. It's 10 o'clock in the evening. Then we have YOLO. It was just launched. And The Talk. What a wonderful show yesterday. And then After Shift of Chino and Tricia on Mondays and Fridays. And then Money and More. And then the Town Hall. And then this one, I watched it last time, one day. You have to uh, make sure you watch this. A very nice show on on real time. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is the new channel, and we have to be tuned in with us. Now, with those, that's why I mentioned with the videos and then what I read, there is what you call truth in advertising. Can we call on Click and ask his thoughts on this? Can we have Klink back? Uh, yes. What are your thoughts on this? Because media organizations cannot also thrive without sponsors and advertisers. But we have this quotation that there should be truth in advertising. So, and most especially considering the social media. Yes. What are your
Well,
thoughts on
yeah,
this?
of course, most advertising content really is commercial in nature. And so there's an expectation that if you're offering something to the public, that you need to be truthful with the product or service that you're offering to the public. But I think as I said earlier, before the break, this business, the mass media business, has been around for centuries, and I think we haven't always been um, faithful to that idea. But I think over the years we've learned our lessons.
Yes, yes. Because I was actually uh, pointing at, uh, with all the online what do you call this, buying in negotiations, online
Mm,
sales that they do. Sometimes you get products that are not actually what is in the picture or what is actually advertised. So we have to be very, really careful. I like that we have that critical thinking. Now, this is HR Hotline Clink. And
yeah.
then the reason why we have mass communication or mass media is because we know that organizations get their information from the mass media. And then I mentioned also earlier that one of the competencies of HR is actually to be a media integrator. What are your thoughts on this? How are they going to translate, convert, convey media? We were both in PMAP before, so I'm very sure you have thoughts on this. And you are also a teacher, and we'll go to that later on. So, what are your thoughts on this of how HR will really give the right signals and be the right influencers in their organizations?
Well, HR, I think, is a critical um, part of any modern organization. The reason why I actively participated in PMAP before was this philosophy that I'm telling you now, that that HR is first and foremost. I think the place to start when you strategize, when you operate your business, you have to have the right people in your organization to do the right thing. So it's not enough to think of ideas. You need to have people to execute them. There somebody had said, I forgot who it was, but I remember reading in a book once that before you decide on a destination, right? You need to get the right people first on the bus, right? It would be useless to try to pursue an objective and not have the team with the capabilities that you need to realize that.
Yes, 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 yes. And then that is actually their job, that they must be able to convey rightly and appropriately the information that they get outside to the organization, because they are actually influencers. Yes, yes. I remember that was a practice before, that they have newspapers at the lobby, and
I'm,
then
you're breaking up. I'm sorry. The newspapers are.
newspapers at the lobbies of offices for people to be informed. That was a practice. I don't know if they
Hmm.
still do that now. If they
Hey,
still do that.
I'm sure they do. But going back to your point, I think in our company, HR, as I see it in Manila Times, is not just the responsibility of the HR department or the people in HR. As president and CEO of the Manila Times, I consider myself the main HR guy. I mean, I
Right.
endeavor to talk to as many of the new people joining us as we have grown. I haven't been able to do that, but I still talk to at least maybe 80-90% of the people joining the company. And then that's because it's as I said, people are important. They're your most valuable asset. And it's not just the skills that people are capable of, it's also the personality, the values, um, and making sure that their personal values or their personal thinking matches that of the company.
I love that. The CEO very much engaged with HR function. I love that. That's why you are my idol, actually. Now, now let me ask you now, because you mentioned it. How is Manila Times?
Well, Manila Times, I think just like most businesses today, are struggling to survive because of the pandemic. As you can probably imagine, one of the challenges that newspapers have is that we need to deliver our physical content to people. And, with the lockdown and even with the modified uh, ECQ and GCQ, I mean, the flights, particularly to Visayas, Mindanao, have not been reliable. So, like the Inquirer and other papers. So I think we're taking this opportunity to hasten our digital platforms and the product development so that we can deliver our content, without the physical paper.
Right. Actually, the positivity of the COVID pandemic, is that it really quickly required us to be digital, or
Yeah.
else we'll be left behind. So how is it? Do you still bring the paper to Visayas and Mindanao?
Well,
No.
right now it's difficult for us to do that.
But
Inquirer.
you have a digital version of the paper.
Yes, we have a digital edition. In fact, it's something that I think people today would enjoy more because it has more pages than our print edition. So there's more value for money there, and it's something that can get to you without having to go out and possibly expose yourself, right? Because you can download it on your mobile or your laptop, or gadget, and you don't have to go outside and worry about wearing a mask or a face shield and still possibly contracting COVID-19.
So you mentioned that they still have to download it. They still have to download it.
Well, there's an app. It's actually very similar to Inquirers. I think our providers are the same company. But so basically, you download an app on your device, and then the device uploads the paper every day. So you just basically open the app in the morning, and the paper's right there. So you could do
Okay.
that
Okay.
from your bed
Okay.
without
Okay. The wonders of digitization. Now I know before you have a school. How is it doing now?
Well, the school is also, facing its challenges. As you know, uh, most, I think all schools in the Philippines are not yet allowing face-to-face in classroom attendance. So the third semester, because we're in a trimester system, was conducted entirely online, and we're looking at conducting at least probably the next two semesters of the new school year probably purely online. And this is both for the Manila Times College in Manila, which offers mainly journalism, but recently added broadcasting, but also for the Manila Times College in Subic.
I see. So at least you mentioned it already. For those who do not know it, Manila Times has a school focused on journalism, and then up and coming is broadcasting. Let's do some update. Our friend Barbie. I
Yes.
see him. I see him in the afternoon. He has a broadcast.
Mm.
So that is actually another way of getting the news mainstream from the newspaper and trying to broadcast it in the afternoon. So he's now a broadcaster. So actually, so just like with Manila Times, we are doing it in various platforms already. Okay. So what can you see with the new normal? What can you see in the future? How will be mass communication in the future?
Well, I think the disruption in mass media started way before the pandemic. As you probably remember from your days in the Inquirer, in the Philippines, we've been seeing a steady decline in readership. But
Yes.
in Inquirer and the Star and Manila Times, we've been seeing phenomenal growth on in our readership online. So in fact, before the readers of Inquirer were only limited to those who can get a physical copy of the paper. But now with online, Inquirer is available worldwide. The same is true with the Manila Times and the Star and the others. So we have millions of readers now, right? Than before. So and that was a phenomenon that was already being experienced years before the pandemic. The problem has always been monetization. So how do we monetize our readers on the digital platforms? And that's the big question mark. And no newspaper in the world has, I think, perfected the system. There are
Yes. Yes.
some that we're looking at now, and but we're keeping an eye on what will work in the Philippines because none have been successfully tried here. But in the future, I think this will continue. I think most newspapers will enhance their digital offerings precisely because people are staying home. And but I think there's going to be still room for print because I think what will happen in the future will be a segmented readership market.
Yes, but I'm still looking at it into that the mass media is really still needed because it's not only news that we are after. I know even with Manila Times, you have balance. You have sections and you have sectors. Ernie Cecilia is, I know he writes with you. Lloyd Luna also writes with you. So just imagine if this will fold up and we will not have what do you call this informations and views on arts, culture, travel, real estate.
Yeah, but
So
I think newspaper content is also evolving because of online. I think that the days are gone when a newspaper serves all segments of the market. But you're right. I think there will be some minimum expectations of other content there besides news, like the arts, sports, business, right? But I think moving forward, papers will probably have to specialize in a particular area or segment of the market.
oh, that's a nice idea that we're talking now. I think we can have Manila Times culture, Manila Times business, Manila Times. That's oh, we're talking business here. But anyway, Klink, let's go back to the HR, which is actually sometimes I'm a little bit not comfortable with that. You always you have a section on business, of course, in Manila Times, but there are a lot of business owners, employers, and managers, and HR in particular, that are not actually reading it.
Hmm.
But kaya, what is the reason behind?
Well, I think that's a challenge. I think it always boils down to content. Maybe the content is not what the market needs or what the market is looking for. So I think uh, in the past there seems to be this thinking among editors that they know better than the readers. But I think in modern times, I think we have to pay more attention to the readers, and if they're not reading the business section or whatever section in the paper, I think we have to I think dig deeper on what I think would serve the market better. In this case, the market for those who are in need of HR content.
Okay. Um, I don't know if you do that in Manila Times or in other mass media. What is your engagement with the information as regards to the pandemic? Some I myself I downloaded the apps, but how can the populace, the people, get the right information for all these series of information that are coming from the DOH or from the task force? It is Manila Times. Do you have a section on that, or you just follow their information and you write about it?
No, of course, the news about the pandemic is seen in just about every section of our paper, from news to lifestyle. That just shows you how big the health stories are these days. And so we report on the latest updates, both on the health side, on the policy side, the prevention side, in our pages. But on our website, we also carry live feeds from the DOH, from Malacanang.
Oh,
We of course also show edited feeds on our YouTube Daily Motion channels from WHO. And of course, we also cover various fora that talk about the pandemic and stories related to that. As you know, there are many organizations that have been organizing webinars and virtual meetings, focusing on the pandemic and preventing the spread of it. So we cover these as well.
yes, that is what I would like. So it's really coming from you. So that is now as a the right source of information, and for HR to read that and then be able to convey the message to the organization. But I mentioned to read. I think that is actually the concern. Is first they must be able to get the source, and that can be one of them can be Manila Times, and then it's digital and print, and then the other one is how we can compel them to really convey the right message and be influencers. So the point is actually on the person, on the owners and on the managers, that they have to read and be able to get the right message and be able to convey it. So it's still communication. I can see it. I can see it. Well, anyways, so before we go to our last break, I would like also to ask you, aside from being a teacher, aside from being a journalist, you're also a sportsman.
Hmm.
So how is it now that it
Well,
is?
right now I'm at home. I don't. It's difficult to go out. Even when golf was allowed, decided not to risk it. And just for my protection and for the protection of my family. So, but sports right now is very difficult, as you know. So, right now I do most of my physical activities, mainly exercising at home.
I see. Okay, we'll have the second break. Don't leave because we are going to have our last segment of the program.
Okay.
Apple or Lloyd, can we have the next series of announcements? We are now in this portion of the episode wherein we have to talk about your job fair. And we have two spelling on that: job fair, F-A-R-E, and job fair, which is F-A-I-R. Okay, so on the F-A-R-E, you just listened to our conversation with Mr. Dante Klink and the second. And so how do you fare as regards to your engagement with the mass media? If you're an owner, an HR, a manager, or a staff, a member of the organization, how do you bring in information? Is it sensationalized? Is it biased, or are you just giving them tidbits of information so that people are getting scared? So each one of us has that particular responsibility. Because the question, how do you fare? So after reading it from the social media, I researched last night, even Disney movies, it's mass media. So after watching, as mentioned by our guest, Netflix, after watching a show, how did you convey that? Was it opinionated? Were you influential wherein you really created a strong feeling from the listeners? So how do you feel? The other one is FAIR. We have some organizations that are still in need of people. We'll have to ask also a special guest if they have one. I know in PMAP, the People Management Association of the Philippines, or our sponsor, Wills Design and Associates, they still are looking for engineers, HR, and even my consultancy, wherein we have Canlas construction in Marikina. So what is now being flashed on the screen are uh, vacancies that you can apply. In Canlas construction in Marikina, Bayan in Marikina, they are actually looking for a compensation and benefit person. And I know that BPOs are also looking for, Cytel is actually looking for agents. So you can read, you can read now. So that means that there is still what you call a job fair. One of these days we'll have an online job fair, but I'm still waiting so that I'm still waiting for audience we're in. Mahirap naman na we have a job fair and we don't have applicants on live applicants. So how do you fare at your job as a person as regards to mass communication? And are you, if you are not anymore happy with what you are doing, do you still have what you call that employability, the competency, the capability, and employability? So, can we go back to our special guest so that we can wrap up our episode today? Okay. So, Clint, it was wonderful to have you, but I would like you to share your thoughts on this. So, what is actually now for everybody? What is now actually the engagement of us, of say me, of Jesse with mass media? What will be that? What will be the relationship of HR of organizations with mass media? Can you give us your thoughts on this?
Well, I think in that regard, the media will be like an intermediary to connect people looking for jobs with companies that are looking to hire. I mean that has been the traditional relationship, but I think this is going to be uh, carried on moving forward, even as traditional media move to the digital platforms, such as social media and whatever else may be invented on the internet. And that is because there is of course that function of traditional media to attract people in general to update them on what's going on. But I think as an ancillary service of media, this is going to be, I think, even more enhanced in the future. So I think HR professionals will continue to engage newspapers, be it on print or on a digital platform, to look for the best talent in the market.
I see, I see. Okay, okay. So, ang bilis ng oras. So, can we have your message to everybody, to our viewers, before we say goodbye?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Jesse, for having me on your show,
Welcome.
and I thank you also for TNC for giving us the opportunity to share with you what's going on with the Manila Times. I neglected to do that in the beginning, so pardon me for my lack of manners, but I just wish to assure people. I think that newspapers will continue in the future. It's not quite sure which newspapers will make it in the future. We hope that Manila Times will be among those. I think certainly Inquirer will be among those. And I think the services that they provide will be essential not only for informing people about things like the pandemic, but as you had noted, your primary concern are the HR professionals in that sector, and I think uh, newspapers and other traditional media will continue providing that service to you.
I see. So, Klink, Klink, thank you very much for being our special guest this lunchtime. Don't leave because we will still have to talk after. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We really have to be engaged with mass media because we have to be informed. You know, if you ask me, why is it that Jesse is so holistic, is so informed. Maybe because I used to work with a publication, which is the Inquirer, and I was forced to read. We still have to read for us to be informed. And not even the news. You know, at this time, the list that I actually read is the news. I just look at to the banner story, read it, but not actually the news, because sometimes it's actually at the bit in the police station. But the other information that makes us a whole person, I read about culture. If you ask me, why is it that I am so cultured? Because I read about culture. It's not only Inquirer that I read. I read Manila Times because that's why. Because Lloyd Luna is there. My friend Ernie Cecilia is there. And I read Klink. You have to read. For you to be learned, for you to be an illustrado, you must be not only informed, but be you must get the right mix of knowledge. This is where we get our insights. There is that saying, you read between the lines, which is why, not that I am traditional, I still would like to have a book. Where is now Kindle? The e-books. I would like really to buy books and then to fill the pages and to pause and then discern the line. Because as Klink told us, there is an investment, not actually monetary, but the investment of the people who wrote it, from the reporter down to the editor and to the publisher. Not that it's for the news again, but going back, arts, culture, travel, real estate, plants, religion. How I miss the inquiries portion on spirituality, but I think Dr. Kalug is still there. How will you be coined or called a learned person if you don't read? So again, woe to you, HR, that you are very much focused on the nitty-gritty of recruitment, the nitty-gritty of the payroll, but you forgot to read. But of course, do not forget to read the Bible, because that's also a source of very, very insightful information. But make it a habit, make it a habit that we have to read. And that is, I think, our engagement with mass media. And we have really to be friends and really embrace them. Because if not, we will not be fully informed. Shy away, that is now my advice, with personal, opinionated news that we get that actually distorts our critical thinking. Make sure that your source of information, your source of knowledge, is duly researched and there is accuracy, veracity, and truth that is fed to you. And from that, it makes you a total person. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am a Bicolano, and Dios Mabalos tells us it's the Lord that will repay us for the things that we do kindly. This is Jesse Rebustillo, Dios Mabalos po.